When was the last time you looked at your life, your calendar, your stamina, your sleep, your stress, and asked, is my heart keeping up or am I just getting used to feeling a little bit off? Because midlife has a way of normalizing things that should be data, not just life now. Welcome to Second Opinion. I'm Rosemarie, a healthcare professional for almost 30 years, a medical journalist, and your host. Around here, we do one thing exceptionally well. We get curious. Curious about what's trending, curious about what's true, curious about what actually matters when your body starts sending new signals around this, phase of life. And today, because it is February and it's American Heart Month here in the US, we are talking about one system you do not get to ignore. Not when you're busy, not when you're tired, not when you're, quote, fine, end quote. Your heart. 6 years ago, I covered heart health and a menopause story for WLTX, a CBS news affiliate in Columbia, South Carolina. So at that time, I'm going to be honest, menopause seemed like something very, very, distant in the future for me. It was interesting. It was very relevant because it was also February for 2020, I was doing some heart health segments, but it was not deeply personable to me. And recently, I went back to watch that story, just so happens. And I had one of those really surreal midlife moments. You probably know what I'm talking about. Because I thought to myself, I am not reporting this anymore. I am living it. Now, I know that because that was many reasons driving the podcast. But it really sat with me for a moment because I remember reporting that and thinking, boy, I really hope this meets the women who need it. And here I am talking about it today in 2026. So here's the thing. That subtle fatigue, the blood pressure that suddenly wants attention, for us here in New York, that winter exhaustion where the spring windows are going up, that is a silver lining for us. We are, we're all genuinely excited for nicer weather around the corner, but our bodies might be like screaming, lady, please sit down. Like, it's not ready. Culturally, for us, February in 2026, it felt heavy. So we lost two actors here in the States that many of us grew up watching. James Van Der Beek, who starred in Dawson's Creek, you may be familiar with, and Eric Dane, the infamous Dr. McSteamy of Grey's Anatomy. Now, here's the thing. Their deaths were not heart-related, but they were men who were thriving in midlife until their unfortunate health conditions, which really only creeped up over, for one of them, it was less than a year, and the other, it was a few years. They were fathers, and they were familiar faces from our formative years. Young men, young families with young children. And something about that lands differently at this stage of life, It reminds you that life is not a rehearsal. Midlife is not a rehearsal. Time is not promised. So I'm using this week, this moment, to zone in on heart health with you. Because here's the thing. Heart disease remains the leading cause of death globally. So this is not just in the US, but this spans across continents. And this just isn't an American conversation for you today. So this is also to my listeners in Canada, the UK, Australia, Ireland, South Africa, Europe, Asia, wherever you are, cardiovascular disease remains a leading cause of death for women worldwide. So this, my friends, is this episode, it's for you as well. Midlife women everywhere, we deserve better information, better conversations, and better advocacies. And what better advocate than yourself? So here we are. This isn't a new conversation for this platform. Season 1, I've previously spoken with cardiologist Dr. Kimberly Skelding. We spoke about heart health, but yes, menopause, cardiovascular risk, and why women's symptoms are so often misunderstood. That episode was one of my first episodes, and it was really foundational. But what's different now in 2026 is that we are not just asking better questions. We are demanding better data. We're connecting the dots longitudinally, and that's what this platform does and other platforms like it. We are building understanding over time. And the heavy hitting core of all of this, I put a couple of insights together for you. Here is insight number 1. Midlife is not when heart disease suddenly appears. We don't suddenly have symptoms. This is when accumulation becomes measurable. What do I mean by that? Measurable parameters like blood pressure, hypertension, right? Insulin resistance, lipid shifts, sleep disruption, our stress load. Here's some data because I think it's important for us to know the numbers. In the United States, nearly 1 in 4 deaths annually are caused by heart disease. Globally, cardiovascular disease accounts for nearly 20 million deaths per year. That is a big number. And women's risk rises sharply after the menopausal transition worldwide, right? So that's not just a trend here in the States, this is everywhere. And this is also not fear based information, this is structural information. And here is the reframe: a midlife checkup is not reassurance. These checkups are necessary recalibrations. You don't wake up one day with heart disease. You wake up with a body that has been adapting quietly for years. Generally, people are inspired. We're inspired by aligned action, and aligned action begins with awareness. So even though we have, you know, global awareness about heart disease, and chances are where you live, this is talked about frequently. But even with all this awareness and this education, the numbers are still increasing. Hopefully, the more we talk, the more research, we'll start to see trends in the opposite direction. Again, which is why I thought that it was important for this little reminder today. Insight number 2. Menopause is not the cause of heart disease, but it can be the inflection point. We've got some research that shows arterial stiffness accelerates around the menopausal transition because estrogen's vascular protection shifts. Blood vessels respond. This is why women say, nothing changed, my diet didn't change, my weight didn't change. Why is my blood pressure suddenly high? Because midlife biology is not a character flaw, it's physiology. Here's the thing. We are led to believe that we have lower risk of heart attack than men. That is true pre-menopause because that estrogen that protects the endothelial lining of our arteries. Post-menopause, right, when we're on the other sides, when those estrogen levels drops, we lose that protection. So that's why we really need to start paying attention and why we need those checkups and why we're having conversations like this today. And this is also where Dr. Skelding's earlier insight becomes powerful because for decades, women were treated like men in cardiology research. We were not proportionally enrolled in trials because in scientific studies, they like to control as much as possible. And when women menstruate, our cycles throw things off, right? They are not predictable. So therefore, they're not easily measured. So women were taken out of research studies. But luckily, that is changing. We're correcting that now. And us midlife women, we deserve that correction. We're not smaller men by any shape or form. Insight number 3. When we get our lab work, when we get these screenings, normal tests don't always mean that we don't have any problems. This is especially true for women. The American Heart Association recognizes coronary microvascular disease. So what is coronary microvascular disease? It is dysfunction in the small vessels, which is more prevalent in women, especially around these low estrogen states. So someone can hear, you could go and your doctor can say your stress test is normal, your angiogram is clean, your cath report, you are fine, but you still might be having symptoms. So my conversation with Dr. Skelding, she described women arriving in tears after being dismissed. And she also does go on to talk about this microvascular testing. All of this, no more tears, right? This is going to end here. The empowering reframe. If you feel dismissed, it does not mean you're dramatic. It does not mean you are unstable because a lot of women, they leave their doctor feeling this way. It means you may need a more precise evaluation and maybe from a new doctor. I am encouraging you, if you are not happy with your medical care, seek out a doctor that specializes in women's heart health. Many will claim it, but do your homework. And treat doctors, it's like an interview process, right? You need to make sure that they suit you. It's not a one-way relationship. It's a two-way relationship. It's very similar to dating, and you may have to try a few on before you find one that fits. I personally live this. I had some heart issues, which I thought when I was about 10 years ago. And it turned out to be okay. It was stress. I was back in school when I was working, but now I have a baseline, and I got that baseline when I was in my early 40s. So it is never too early to start talking to your primary doctor and maybe think about seeing a cardiologist for a baseline workup. I just can't stress that enough. Search until you feel good about your care. Insight number 4, men in midlife, they are not immune. Often men are late. My family gets together and sadly we talk about people who we have lost who've had unfortunate cardiovascular events that could have been really preventable because often we are all late to the conversation. I really want to bring the men into this. So if you love a midlife man, share this episode because someone has a heart attack every 40 seconds in the United States. And globally, it's every few seconds. So don't let I'm busy become your risk factor. Do not let the day-to-day minutia of life come before your health. Insight number 5, modern therapies are evolving. What do I mean by modern therapies? The medication that we've been talking about for the last couple years, GLP-1s, semaglutide, which is Wegovy, Ozempic, tirzepatide. These drugs are now FDA approved to reduce cardiovascular events in certain high-risk populations. This is not weight loss medicine or cosmetic medicine. This is cardiometabolic science evolving. This is really exciting. We're changing with the times. Now there's options for these people, not only who were struggling with losing weight, but to get heart healthy. Here's the thing. There's been a lot of talk about medication in the media lately, but these medications, including hormone replacement therapy, these do not replace our fundamentals for anything. Good diet, exercise, movement, and the measurable markers that we can follow, which are blood pressure, lipids, sleep. We cannot stress management enough and follow through with all these things. We do not outsource responsibility. We align our actions. So it's up to us to show up for ourselves. I'm going to go a little bit deeper here. Stay with me. What have you been labeling as midlife that might actually be measurable? Because not everything we can chalk this up to the change. There could be some measurable parameters for you to take note of. And I'm going to say this because I think that especially as women, we caregivers, we're always so worried about taking care of everybody else. If your best friend described your symptoms, would you tell her to push through or would you tell her to book the appointment? I think you would probably tell her to book the appointment. And here's something to journal on. The version of me I'm becoming needs stronger baselines. What does a stronger baseline mean for you in numbers? Get clear with your numbers. All of your numbers, all of your health data. It all matters and it all plays a part in your story. Before we start wrapping things up today, I want to give you a couple action steps. So I'm going to piggyback off knowing your numbers, right? Your blood pressure, your lipids, your hemoglobin A1C, your waistline trends, right? Your family history. Talk to people in your family. Book that screening. Book your physical, your dental, your mammogram, your colonoscopy. For our men out there, the men we love, your urology, prostate appointments. Schedule movement like it's a meeting, not to optimize, but to regulate and to create really healthy habits. I'm going to give you an Instagrammable line because, we're all about social media these days. Midlife is not a breakdown. It's a recalibration with receipts. We've got the receipts to prove it. And now a chapter from your book. Your future doesn't require perfection. It requires participation. Show up for yourself like you show up for the people in your life that you love. And this is also, I'm going to be totally transparent. This is a public service announcement for myself because none of this is glamorous. It takes time. And we often put work and other obligations before our time. But if you love yourself, you love your family, you will make your health a priority. And as always, if this episode landed for you, share it with one thoughtful person. Leave a review, subscribe, and follow. Send this to someone navigating midlife. I'm sure a lot of you know high achievers who keep brushing off their quiet fatigue, loss of breath. Maybe they feel like their heart's racing a little bit. They're not sleeping well. All of this plays a part, some of those quiet symptoms. Now, if you have not listened to my earlier conversation with Dr. Kim Skelding on menopause and heart health, I welcome you to go back. It was an episode that got a lot of feedback from medical professionals. They found Dr. Kim to share information that they weren't even aware and that they were even having symptoms. And again, these are healthcare providers. If you have some time, go back. That's in season 1. This episode, it builds on it. This is how we do things here. We're not going to chase trends. We're going to build understanding over time. And that is sovereign, being sovereign in your health and being sovereign in the way that you show up with your life. Once upon a time, we believed heart disease was someone else's story. And then suddenly midlife recalibrated that chapter. Fortunately, midlife brings discernment. And as it turns out, the most powerful heart health strategy is not fear, it's follow through. Thank you so much for being here with me. I truly, truly, truly appreciate every single one of you. This is Second Opinion, produced by me, Rosemarie Beltz, from New York City, where curiosity is the real fountain of youth and age is always the upper hand. Until next time.